Thanks, Trev. Good morning, everyone. Great to be chatting to you again. Today, I will be chatting to you about Treasury's recently proposed two-pot retirement system. I will go through a paper that they released in December 2021 called Encouraging South African Households to Save More for Retirement. In that paper, essentially, they talked to the last three issues that government would like to solve for in retirement reforms. The third being preservation and the two-pot retirement system. We will have a focus on that part of this paper, okay, but I will also cover the other two issues as well. Okay, so don't be too alarmed at this slide. This is basically the three issues that I was talking about in retirement reforms that Treasury and government would still like to address. Okay, everything on the right-hand side is the preservation issue, which is the two-pot system that they are proposing. Okay, this slide is my entire presentation. I'm not going to go through the slide. Instead, what we will do is we will cover different chunks of it at different stages in the presentation. Okay, so moving swiftly along. In the paper that I referred to, the three issues that Treasury is still trying to address is around coverage. Whilst the current retirement system covers many workers, there remain significant categories of workers who are not participating in any retirement scheme. So that's the first one. The next one is around costs. Whilst the costs applying to retirement funds might have been made more transparent, most of the cost structure of retirement fund relates to the size and number of funds, which is not perceived to be economical by Treasury. Okay, and the third one, which we will really focus on in this presentation, is around preservation. Many members of the retirement funds do not preserve their savings, tending to cash out every time they change jobs. Whilst the default regulations do assist with preservation, significant loopholes still remain. Okay, and enter the two-part retirement system. So just very briefly on the first one on coverage, because I do think that once they get the two-part retirement system into play, that this is where a lot of the focus will be on in the coming years, around coverage for all employees in South Africa. So South African government intends on introducing auto-enrollment or mandatory system of retirement saving for all employed and self-employed persons. They propose introducing auto-enrollment to cover all formal employees, thereby ensuring that all formal sector workers will have a nest egg and possibly risk cover at retirement. The informal sector poses a bigger threat as seasonal vulnerable workers don't earn a steady salary or wage, and the retirement system, as we know, is built around regular contributions. So this is seen as a big challenge for Treasury, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what they propose in this space. Mandatory cover may be the solution for this, as employers would be forced to deduct contributions prior to paying the informal worker and pay that contribution in an occupational fund or any other approved fund. So essentially what we're saying here is that regardless of the sector that you're in, government sees it as important that all employees in South Africa contribute towards a retirement system, whether you're in the formal sector or in the informal sector. Essentially a contribution needs to go into a retirement fund from any income that you earn. So an employer is going to be tasked with ensuring that a certain portion of an employee's salary is deducted in order to save towards retirement. Okay, so watch this space. The next issue is, and we know it's an ongoing one, and it's often spoken about, and it's in terms of costs. So the intention here is to reduce the number of smaller retirement funds available and consolidate them into a few bigger retirement funds. So Treasury's view here, or government's view here, is that the less retirement funds we have, okay, the cheaper retirement fund solutions will become, as the bigger ones will have scale and they will then be able to charge lower fees, which is an interesting concept. I'm not sure that our retirement funds trustees would agree with that. in our instance, for example, we don't have any admin fees associated with our retirement funds. There aren't any penalties associated with the product itself, and any cost, and there isn't any product costs associated with it as well. It's just the investment management fees. So it will be interesting to see that if this does happen, if we are left with a few of the bigger retirement funds and all the smaller ones have been consolidated, is whether this will in fact result in cost savings for retirement fund members. The next one, and the one that we will be concentrating on today, is in terms of preservation, and specifically the two-pot retirement system. And yes, I know it's called the two-pot system, and Treasury is referring to the savings pot into the retirement pot. Okay, but in order to accommodate this, you'll also have to have what's referred to as the vested pot. So I guess technically you could call it the three-pot system. I'm going to look at the first one. And the vested pot is in terms of all pre-1 March 2023 contributions made to a retirement fund. And why 1 March 2023? Well, it's the intention for the two-pot system to be promulgated by 1 March 2023. As to whether or not that's realistic, we'll speak about that towards the end of the presentation, is another matter. But for now, the proposal is that it go live on 1 March 2023. And the intention here is that all contributions made prior to that period, okay, be ring-fenced into this vested pot, because essentially what you'll find is that the current retirement rules, which will become the old retirement rules when this goes live, will still apply to the vested pot. So it'll be treated in the same way retirement funds are treated prior to promulgation, which is current rules. You can still access on resignation, but it's taxed as a withdrawal, which is, again, still the rules now. If you resign today and you accessed your retirement funds, okay, you can take all of it in cash should you so wish. And it'll be taxed in terms of the withdrawal tax table, lump sum withdrawal tax table, and it'll still apply even to the vested pot. You have to annuitize 2/3 of your benefit at retirement, unless your provident fund contributions, you have pre 1 March 2021 provident fund contributions, okay, because as we know, okay, you aren't forced to annuitize those contributions, because there's also the vested rights are protected when they introduced the legislation around provident funds. Okay, so essentially you could actually end up with, even though it's a three-pot system, if it's a provident fund involved, you could have a pre-1 March 2021 provident fund vested pot and a post-1 March 2021 provident fund vested pot. The next pot that I want to chat about is the savings pot, and this is going to be this new concept. And the intention here is for 1/3 of all contributions post-implementation date to go into the savings pot. Up to 1/3 must go into, up to 1/3 can go into this savings pot. Okay, and once you're in the savings pot, you can access these funds on an annual basis. Okay, so a few things that's important there. There's 3 things to discuss. The first being that the legislation wording seems to suggest that it's up to 1/3, which suggests that the trustees of a retirement fund will have the discretion to set that limit, which effectively means that you could set that limit to be 0%. And if, for example, if you look at a retail retirement annuity fund, if the trustees decide to set it at 0%, well, essentially your retirement annuity post-implementation will look exactly the same as retirement annuities currently. So it'll be interesting to see what trustees will decide to do, especially in the retail funds, whether or not they'll set it. Okay, then the other thing is that you're entitled to 1 withdrawal per year. Okay, and it's not very clear in terms of per year, whether it's tax year, whether it's year from when you first took out the product. Hopefully we'll get clarity around that, but we do know that you're entitled to 1 withdrawal per year. There is a limit of 2,000 Rand that you'll have to take more than the 2,000 Rand. But what's really interesting is that that benefit will be taxed at the member's marginal rate of tax. Okay, so currently, if you took a withdrawal, you would apply the withdrawal tax table, which is your 25,000 Rand tax-free. Okay, that will no longer be the case. Okay, you will be taxed at your marginal rate of tax, and we know that generally your marginal rate of tax, okay, is higher than the effective rate you would have had you used the withdrawal table. So it could be, if your marginal rate of tax is 45%, okay, if you decide to take a benefit, a withdrawal from your savings pot, you could pay as high as 45% tax, which is exceptionally high. I guess it's designed that way because they do want to encourage you to preserve your benefits. So even though you will be given access to your savings pot, they would like you to unless you desperately need it, to save it, to keep it going until you actually reach retirement. Then the third pot I'm going to chat about is the retirement pot. So if we said up to 1/3 of all contributions needs to go into your saving pot, okay, that means that a minimum of 2/3 of your retirement fund contributions made after the effective date, whatever that may be, okay, must then go into the retirement pot. Okay, so all retirement funds and administrators must ensure that they administrate contributions so that a minimum of 2/3 goes into the retirement pot. Now, the retirement pot, where it differs from your current rules and from the savings pot, is that you will never be able to access any benefit in your retirement pot prior to retirement. When you get to retirement, you need to use whatever's left in your retirement pot to purchase a compulsory annuity. Okay, so whilst you can access your savings pot once a year, your retirement pot must be preserved until retirement. So this slide is an infographic of everything we discussed in terms of what's left for government to do in terms of retirement reforms. Two of the issues that's raised from the two-pot system specifically is the first around the implementation date of 1 March 2023. We don't think that this date is realistic. In order to administer the two-pot system, there's going to be significant systems development and rule changes. Even the retirement fund rules need to be amended to accommodate this. And we think that 1 March 2023 is extremely optimistic. So we're hoping that when we see the final legislation come out, that this date will be pushed back a bit. The other issue is in terms of over-contributions to retirement funds, and that it must go to the retirement pot. And what they're specifically referring here is your contribution tax deductions that you qualify for of up to 27.5% of taxable income or remuneration. And the requirement in this proposal is that any contribution above that amount, and let's just, as an example, say that you qualify for the full 350,000 Rand tax deduction and you contribute 400,000 Rand. The requirement here is that the 350,000 Rand can go into the savings pot, but the over-contribution of 50,000 Rand needs to go into the retirement pot so that you can't access that over-contribution except at retirement. And the problem with that is that there's no way that trustees of a retirement fund can administer that, because not only are they not fully aware of where you've contributed to retirement funds, you could have a retail fund with a retirement duty with a competitor, okay, but also they're not aware of the members' remuneration or taxable income. So it's not really possible for the trustees to determine what the over-contribution, or if there is an over-contribution, and then to administer it by putting it into a retirement pot. So that's another proposal that we hope is dropped when we do finally see the final regulations come out. So that's it from me for today. I hope you got some value and you do understand the two-pot system a little bit better. I'm going to hand over back to Trev.